Hey folks, hope you all are doing well. I'm Karan Bandal from Econosite, and in this video, let's talk about India's lead in expanding a global middle class. India's economy has demonstrated an impressive performance post-COVID. India is among a very few countries where gross domestic product is expected to grow at a reasonable pace when the global economy, riddled with challenges, is slowing down fast. India's GDP growth is expected to help a vast population that resides in the country. Let's see how. In calendar year 2024, 113 million people will join the global middle class, creating a lot of spending power in the global economy. Global middle class or consumer class is defined as someone who spends at least $13 per day in today's dollars. In an Indian context, that translates to someone who spends close to 4 lakh rupees per year. Overall, the global consumer class amounted to 4 billion people in June 2023 and is expected to reach 5 billion by 2031. A lot of growth is going to come from India in this space. Look at the numbers for the next year itself. In 2024, out of the 113 million people that will enter the global middle class, 57% will come from India and China alone. India will lead by adding 33 million people to the global middle class. That's an addition of roughly $160 billion worth of consumer spending to the Indian economy just next year. In terms of region, Asia is expected to dominate by adding 81% of the new consumers in 2024. Besides India and China, Indonesia and Bangladesh are expected to add 5 million people each to this growing middle class. A strong contribution by India and China, though, highlights their massive population, rising income levels, and high rates of urbanization that other countries just cannot match on all three counts. So, India's GDP growth means an improved ability for its people to spend and provide a better quality of life to their families. While it's good that India is making progress in bringing people out of poverty and into the middle class, Indians must also target wealth building in the long run. India cannot get complacent with only the high GDP growth rates. Just look at the global wealth picture and you see how far behind India stands. Here you can see mean and median wealth per adult for about 40 countries. Mean wealth number tells us the average wealth, while median wealth number provides the most accurate picture of wealth since it identifies the midpoint of the database with half of the data points above this number and half falling below. For example, in the United States, average wealth per adult is around $500,000, but median wealth per adult is only about $100,000. That is, half of the US adults have wealth over $100,000 and the other half below that number. The higher average wealth number tells us that extremely rich Americans are skewing the mean or average way above the median, which distorts the overall picture. So a larger gap between mean and median wealth indicates a higher level of inequality within the nation. Simply put, wealth inequality means that a very few people own a buttload of money and a vast majority of people own very little. Be that as it may, despite wealth inequality, majority of the nations on this list are quite well off. In 2022, globally, average wealth per adult stood at about $84,000. By these measures, Switzerland ranks at the top at more than $650,000 of wealth per person, where over 15% of the population are millionaires. Also, 5 of the top 10 countries by average wealth are in Western Europe. The United States, largest economy in the world, ranks second on this scale. US, by the way, is home to 38% of all millionaires globally. In Asia, Singapore has the highest average wealth per adult at about $383,000. Now, when it comes to median wealth per person, Belgium ranks the highest with about $250,000 per person. That means half of the adults in Belgium are worth more than $250,000 each. Here, Europe's domination is even more evident, with 7 out of the top 10 countries being from the region. This reveals that European nations are a lot less unequal when it comes to wealth distribution. America falls to 12th place by this measure. Can you see how wealthy people in these countries are? Given this context, look where India stands. India's median wealth per person is just $3,800 and average wealth per person is $16,500. Global average wealth per person is 5 times that of India, and when compared with a top-ranking nation, Swiss average wealth per person is 42 times that of India. In terms of median wealth per person, India is even worse off, indicating a severe inequality problem also. Now, one of the ways in which Indians can look to build wealth is by participating in the financial markets or stock exchanges. Here's why. These are the top 25 stock exchanges globally. The total market value of all major stock exchanges is $110 trillion, slightly more than the size of the global GDP. As expected, the United States takes the lead here. The world's top 2 exchanges are in the US, the New York Stock Exchange and Nasdaq. Together, they command 42.4% of the global market capitalization. That is, out of $110 trillion worth of global capital market, just the 2 US stock exchanges are worth over $45 trillion. This is important to understand because how do people build wealth? By owning assets. In most cases, the value of assets goes up over time. And one of the ways in which people can own assets is through buying a part of successful companies on these stock exchanges. Then as the companies grow, their revenues and profits go up, you also benefit as a part owner of that asset. So the United States, where financial markets are matured and proportion of Americans that own financial assets is relatively high, is it any surprising that America ranked second on mean wealth per adult? Size of India's stock exchange is also impressive at about $3.5 trillion. It is the 8th largest stock exchange in the world. But lack of financial awareness among Indians means that a very few Indians are participating in this wealth building avenue. In summary, India's relatively strong growth in the medium term is bringing more and more people into the middle class. And India needs to maintain this growth momentum for decades to meaningfully expand the middle class. At the same time, I think Indians must also target wealth building in the long run. Government cannot do everything. Private participation is also necessary. I hope you found this analysis interesting. I'll speak with you again next week. Until then, take care.